Starting my junior year at Southern Lehigh High School in Pennsylvania was a nightmare. Everyone already had their friend groups and I was alone. The worst part was lunchtime. Juniors weren't allowed to leave for lunch, unlike seniors, so I had to face the cafeteria with no one to sit with. When lunchtime finally came, I entered the bustling cafeteria with my tray, scanning for a seat. Every table was packed except for one in the corner with just two kids. It seemed the least intimidating, so I walked over and asked if I could sit. They exchanged glances before one nodded. As I sat, I noticed they were identical twins. They introduced themselves as Antonio and Bruno. They seemed nice enough and even invited me to hang out after school. Desperate for friends, I agreed. Later that evening, I received a text from Bruno. He said they were planning to meet at a nearby cemetery around 9 p.m. It sounded eerie, but I had nothing better to do. I agreed, thinking it might be an adventure. As I walked in the dark to the cemetery, doubts crept in. Meeting two strangers in a cemetery at night wasn't the smartest idea, but I pressed on. Bruno texted me again, saying they were in the woods by a small lake, and sent his location. I ventured into the woods, pushing branches aside, guided only by my phone's flashlight. I called out for them, but only heard footsteps. They were slow at first, then quickened. Suddenly, someone grabbed me from behind, nails digging into my neck. I struggled free and sprinted towards the road. The footsteps followed, but stopped at the tree line. I ran home and told my parents everything. We reported the incident to the school the next day, and with the text evidence, Antonio and Bruno were expelled. My parents made me block their numbers, and I thought that was the end of it. A week later, I woke up to a chill in my room. My window was wide open. Confused, I checked if my mom had opened it, but she hadn't. I then noticed my door, which I had left open, was now half shut. Fear gripped me as I saw someone hiding behind it. I screamed and the door slammed shut. My dad rushed in and we saw a leg disappear out the window. Despite my dad's chase, the intruder got away. We called the police, but without proof, there wasn't much they could do. Months passed in fear, but nothing like that happened again. Reflecting now, I realize how foolish I was to trust those twins and meet them at night. The cafeteria should have been my warning. Freshman year 2007, in gym class, we had a substitute teacher on one of the stormiest days. The sub, an older man, seemed off. During attendance, he gave me a strange look. He told us to form volleyball teams and disappeared. When the period ended, my locker wouldn't open. I asked the sub for help, and he followed me into the girls' locker room. As he tried the combination, he kept touching me, his hand sliding down my back. Uncomfortable, I grabbed my bag and said I was late for my bus. Suddenly, the lights went out. I finished dressing in the dark and ran for the exit, fearing the sub might be waiting for me. As I reached the door, I saw him peeking around the lockers. I sprinted out into the rain and walked home, realizing he might have changed my locker combination to get me alone. I never told anyone, not even my parents, too embarrassed and scared. In high school band, I needed to make up lessons to avoid a B. Mr. Nicholson allowed me to practice in a storage room during lunch. Down in the creepy basement, I started playing games on my phone when the lights went out. Using my phone's dim light, I navigated the dark hallway. I heard dragging noises and heavy breathing, then saw a plastic container pushed into the hall. I hid, sensing someone nearby. I turned on my phone for a split second and saw a man standing inches away. He squeezed my shoulder and I bolted, running upstairs to tell Mr. Nicholson. Security found no one, and I later realized someone had probably tried to steal equipment and was hiding in the dark. One night, my friends and I decided to sneak into the high school basement through a broken window. We dispersed to explore. I followed one friend upstairs into the dark, eerie school. He went into a bathroom stall while I waited. Then my phone rang. It was my friend Chris, asking where I was. I said I was with either Roland or Brandon, but they were with him. Realizing I was with a stranger, I saw a face peeking over the stall. I screamed and ran back to the basement, finding my friends, and we escaped through the window. Outside, we saw someone watching us from a classroom window. We never did anything like that again.